Well, hello there. How is everyone? I hope you're well. You amazing, beautiful, wonderful people. Yes, as we are preparing to move, everything is shifting around. So every time I do a video, it's likely to look different. It's nuts at the minute. No, absolutely nuts. So bear with me, you amazing people. You look amazing. You are amazing because you're putting up with this madness. But anyway, talking about madness, I am going live tomorrow now. I was supposed to go live tonight, but I had to tweak things. I'll speak about it on the live tomorrow. Let's get straight into the meat and potatoes as we've got an article to go through, because apparently there's going to be some new evidence being used in the Idaho 4 case against Bryan Kohbergers. And by the end of this video, I think it's something that we're going to have to think, hold on a second, is this against Bryan Kohbergers or is it for Bryan Kohbergers? Let's get into it. So this is what we're looking at, right? So Idaho killings case set to use Bryan Kohbergers' old college paper as evidence. And I know if people haven't seen this, you're probably thinking it's that, you know, that thing where that was trying to get people who was involved in crime. It's not that. Not that. This is something else, right? Prosecutors said the paper Kohbergers wrote in 2020 while he was a student at DeSales University in Pennsylvania would be introduced to show defendants' knowledge of crime scenes. So, knowledge of crime scenes. Prosecutors in the case against Bryan Kohbergers, the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students, are seeking to introduce a college paper he wrote as evidence. Again, I don't know whether this is something that the prosecution should be introducing in evidence or the defense. We'll talk about that in a second. The paper, according to a recent court filing, reveals Kohbergers' understanding of crime scenes. Kohbergers, 30, faces 4 counts of murder in the November 13th, 2022 stabbing deaths of Ethan Chapman, Anna Canodal, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee Gonsalves. The students were found dead in an off-campus rental home in Moscow, Idaho. Autopsies indicated the victims were likely asleep at the time of the attack, which we know is bollocks. But anyway, some had defensive wounds, which you wouldn't have if you was asleep. And each was, you can see that on the screen multiple times. Prosecutors have stated their intention to pursue the death penalty if Kohbergers was convicted. His trial is set to commence on August the 11th last year. No, not last year. August the 11th, full stop, slight break. Last year, when asked to enter a plea, Kohbergers remained silent, leading the judge to enter a not guilty plea on his behalf. In a court file on Monday, prosecutors said the paper Kohbergers wrote in 2020 while he was a student at DeSales University in Pennsylvania would be introduced to show defendants' knowledge of crime scenes. The 12-page paper entitled Crime Scene Scenario Final uses the example of the killing of a woman in which a knife was apparently used. The paper discusses the many steps authorities should take to secure and investigate a crime scene, including keeping people away to avoid contamination, obtaining a search warrant, and calling a supervisor, a coroner, and forensic services. The paper also details the equipment used for crime scene investigation, how to collect evidence, and how to enter a crime scene to avoid contamination, including wearing gloves and other protective equipment. Anything that is fiber-free and covers the mouth, hair, and overall body would be helpful in avoiding crime scene contamination, the paper said. Kohbergers, when a criminal justice graduate student in Washington State University, was arrested in Pennsylvania weeks after the killings. Investigators said they matched his DNA to genetic material recovered from a knife she found at the crime scene. The college paper also describes how to preserve the chain of custody for evidence. It discusses the importance of gathering surveillance footage and questioning potential witnesses as part of the investigation. Anyone who normally passes by the scene, such as a mailman, should be questioned and an alibi established, the paper said. Where were the neighbors when this happened? Their alibis should be evident and supported. The killing shook Moscow, a small farming community of about 25,000 people that hadn't had a homicide in about 5 years. The trial was moved from rural northern Idaho to Boise after the defense expressed concerns that Kohbergers couldn't get a fair trial in the county where the killings occurred. Judge Stephen Hitler has scheduled a hearing for April 9th to consider pre-trial motions. According to among those to be decided, the arguments over whether an autism spectrum disorder diagnosis would preclude Kohberger from being eligible for a death penalty if convicted, and over whether jurors should hear audio of a 911 call made by two women in the house roughly 8 hours after the killings, as they realised one of their roommates wasn't waking up. The court has issued a gag order for everyone involved in the trial and won't allow cameras in the courtroom. Well. So look at this, look. So my issue that I have here, right, if Bryan Kohberger has extensive knowledge of crimes, because someone said the other day, right, they said, just to let you know that Kohberger was studying criminology, and that's more about the why rather than the how. But this has obviously shot that in the foot, because it's basically saying that he absolutely fucking knew what you can do in the crime scene, what you can't do, what forensics would be looking for, and the investigation, how that would likely go. So what we've got to try and ascertain here is, why would someone with this much extensive knowledge decide to go into this area in their own vehicle, driving around and getting caught on multiple cameras, apparently, and then entering in this house with his eyes shut, when he could have just wore a fucking ski mask in its entirety. He could have covered his entire face with a visor of some description, but left his eyes free, and gone into this property and done this crime, leaving a witness and leaving evidence behind as well in the form of a knife sheath. So again, I don't know whether this is something that the prosecution should be bringing in or the defence, because we've constantly say, don't we, could Bryan Kohberger really have been that stupid? Is this something that you can really consider someone with his clearly vast knowledge of crimes and all of that jazz, would he have made the mistakes that were made here? Because it is a valid question to ask. Would somebody with all of this knowledge have done these things? And I just can't fathom as to why. I can't work it out. It doesn't make sense to me. The crimes themselves are almost like there's an anger. It's like retribution. I don't know. It's trying to make a square peg fit a round hole with respect of trying to fit Bryan Kohberger to this crime. And look, I'll say it again, I'm not completely ignorant to the fact that everybody has the ability to do evil things, but it's like looking at Bryan Kohberger, and I personally don't see it, but I appreciate that other people look at Bryan Kohberger and perhaps see something completely different. But you'll have to let me know down below what you think. You know, would somebody with this extensive amount of knowledge, very extensive amount of knowledge, would he have done the things that he's supposed to have done here and made the mistakes? The biggest one for me the two biggest things for me would be the phone. The phone, he could have simply left his phone at home. He was familiar with the area. He'd frequented this area to do other stuff. It was a neighbouring town, so he didn't need his phone. If he knew he was leaving his property to go to another property and commit this atrocity, why take your phone? And then why drive your own car and drive round the estate up and down, getting caught here, getting caught there? It doesn't make sense to me. Make it make sense. And I'll catch you all tomorrow. Mwah.